I know it. I shouldn't have been invited here tonight. You should have included me out. I can hear the committee now, God bless them, saying he's not going to tell us what we want to hear. And for once, the accountants of spirituality did their sums rightly. 2 times 2 is still 4. And the figure on this ledger reads, there are no justified resentments. None. Not the dignified kind you can air over dinner and have your clever friends nod solemnly. Not the patriotic kind, the parental kind, the religious kind. Not even the kind you dress in sackcloth and ashes and call righteous indignation. Judge not that ye be not judged, said the master. He didn't add an asterisk for grievances with good press agents. Let's lay the axe at the root early, so we don't waste a single breath pruning twigs. In the one, resentment has no legitimacy. Now, I will grant you the humanhood in us rises on its hind legs at that sentence, bristling with examples, footnotes, and a scrapbook of certified injuries. It wants to take the microphone and itemize its pain so thoroughly, we will swear God himself issued the invoices. But listen, I'm not dealing in theories this evening. I am speaking of a way that has, in the quiet of dawns and the middle of nights, dissolved the cancers of mind and circumstance by the presence that needs no committee's approval. I have watched bills with no earthly payer meet a no thing and vanish. I have known hatred in a cramped apartment become a home of laughter before the kettle boiled. That is not rhetoric. That is what the one does when we stop insisting there are two. Do you hear the question that will not let us off? If God is one, who exactly are we resenting? I and my Father are one, says the Christ within John's pages. And if we dare to let that sentence be more than red ink, if we let it breathe in us, we must ask, where's the second power that injured me? Where's the third party to blame? And what little idol of a self is so precious it must be appeased with resentment's incense? If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Single, not split, not a double entry book with credit to God and debit to the offender. A single eye cannot behold an enemy without first inventing one. To those who need a story to rest upon, let me offer you one from a city you won't find on the map, though it looks just like yours. A woman called Martha came to me with a grievance so eloquent I half expected it to receive a literary prize. Her brother had cheated her of an inheritance, she said, and the words never and always marched like soldiers between us. We did not discuss the brother. We did not rehearse the crime. We sat in the one until her tongue forgot its lines. We remembered something older than the quarrel. Forgive 70 times 7. When she rose, she had not excused a theft. She had simply stepped out of the theater. 3 weeks later, the lawyer's letter arrived. Unexpected, not a miracle, just the natural consequence of a quarrel that had no actor to play the role. Terms revised, no fanfare, no hatred. Presence had adjusted appearances. That is what happens when the second power retires. Now, I know some of you are already editing me in your heads, softening my words with exceptions. Keep your pencil in your pocket a little longer. We are going to walk this out. We will expose resentment for the self-worship. It is Sunday clothes on a small idol. We will look the old serpent of 2 powers in the eye and find it has no tongue to hiss. We will practice dying daily to the resenting self. Paul did not blush to say it. I die daily. And we will learn service that refuses the hook of pity while pouring love like sunlight. We will set boundaries without hatred. We will be firm as granite and light as breath. And by God's own life, we will laugh again with that effervescence that proves the cork has popped in the soul. But it begins here, not tomorrow. Resist not evil, which is to say, stop granting it the dignity of a second throne. Let's twist that Bible upside down, if we must, to read what has always been written in us. One God, one life, one love. There are no justified resentments in that. Include me out of every conversation that wants to keep even one. Include me wholly in the one where, at last, there is nothing left to resent and no one left to resent it. Let us take the mask off gently, because the face beneath is our own, and yet let us take it off without delay. Resentment is not a virtue with a bad haircut. It is the incense burnt before a wounded image of me. I have knelt at that private altar. I confess it. I have polished that idol with eloquent arguments and called the fumes principle, duty, moral clarity, when in fact it was nothing more than humanhood demanding tribute for its bruised pride. It is not a large idol. It fits nicely under a Sunday coat and can be carried into church, to the office, to the dinner table. It only asks that you keep its little fire fed with stories, how I was overlooked, how I was taken for granted, how my gift was not acknowledged, and in return it promises you a bit of warmth, a sense of being right. But listen, the God self does not warm itself at that fire. It has no chill for which resentment could be a coat. Do you think it is the God self in you that is insulted? Do you think it is the divine life that suffers when your name is omitted from a program, your raise delayed, your kindness ignored? Do you think it is the Christ of you that is betrayed when a friend forgets, a partner falters, a child speaks in haste? Or is it only the picture we cherish? A portrait painted in humanhood's colors, my reputation, my timing, my due, my right that bristles and demands atonement? If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. What self is there to deny, if not the very one that flares up under the slight? The God self does not take umbrage. It takes no inventory of slights, because it lives from a storehouse, not subject to human ledgers. It sees no debtor, and it sees no debt. Resentment, dressed in Sunday clothes, often passes for conscience. Have you noticed? It speaks in solemn tones. It quotes rules. It wraps itself in the flag or the family. It says, I am only asking for what is right, and outwardly it can look righteous. Outwardly, it marches for justice or speaks for propriety or guards the sanctity of an agreement. But inwardly, what sits on the throne? A very private idol called my right. It is not the justice of God we are after then. It is the coronation of self. That is why resentment is so exhausting. It requires constant ceremony, repeated rehearsal, the retelling that winds our nerves tighter, because the idol is small and must be defended with much noise. The justice of God, by contrast, is quiet, clean, full of light. It does not fume. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Single, not doubled over into right versus wrong, me versus them, yesterday versus today. In my early practice, I kept a neat folder, I would not have called it that, where I placed those who needed correction. I prayed over that folder with a furrowed brow, certain I was serving conscience. The results were always the same. My heart grew tight, my language grew brilliant, and nothing good happened. One evening, the inner rebuke came without thunder. Is it the God self in you that is so determined to be obeyed? I sat there like a schoolboy caught with matches by the curtains. I could not pretend any longer. It was not conscience I had been serving. It was my private idol in a clerical color. Let us be honest. The pain we feel in resentment is real to the human senses. Tight chest, hot cheeks, nights of replay. But suffering blooms only where we identify as a separate, personal self. Take away that identification, even a little, and watch what happens. The story's temperature drops. The hook cannot find the jaw. What changed? Not the world. Not yet. The altar was dismantled, the incense put away, and the small god dismissed without apology. Paul did not blush to say, I die daily. To what does he die, if not this very claimant to our loyalty, this humanhood that insists on dues, on vindication, on memorial plaques? Die daily to the self that resents, and you will find no priest left to tend its fire. Do you think the Christ said, turn the other cheek to make you a doormat? Or did he, with surgical love, expose the root where resentment feeds? He was not instructing cowardice. He was revealing that in the one power, there is nothing to push against, nothing to store up as grievance and polish into a creed. Bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you. Why? Because to bless is to leave the altar of self and stand in the temple not made with hands. There, conscience is not a cudgel. It is a clear seeing that refuses to enthrone injury as reality. Here is the paradox that feels cold to the human heart, but burns with divine warmth. When resentment goes, love remains, and it is more impersonal and more tender than our wounded selves can imagine. Drop the idol, and the grievance starves. Refuse the incense, and the room clears. The habit will plead. It will say, but if I do not resent, I will forget what was done. Precisely, that is the mercy. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Forgiveness is not a favor bestowed upon an offender. It is the evaporation of the little God who needed an offender to feel alive. So if you catch yourself today arranging your words to make your wound look like wisdom, smile without irony, and set the censer down, do not argue with the idol. It thrives on argument. Do not decorate it with scripture. It loves to be preached for. Simply step back into the one. Whisper what is truer than your best case. I and my Father are one, and in that there is no second power to insult, no second person to resent, no second throne to defend. Then walk on, unperfumed by grievance, with that curious lightness that tells you the altar has been dismantled and the sanctuary reclaimed. Now we come to the part that either frees you in a sentence or irritates you for a month. There are not two powers, not a good God here doing his best and some rival force over there undoing his work by night. One, only God as being, as the I that is before Abraham was, as the life that does not divide itself into friends and enemies for the sake of your drama or mine. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Single means no second cause to fear, no second will to negotiate with, no shadow authority to resent. I know the humanhood in us protests. But what of evil? What of the injury? What of the offender? And I say with as much tenderness as I can say anything in the one. What will you set opposite to it? With what material will you build a second throne? Let us take the red letters and make them breathe now, not as embroidery on the wall, but as speech in the heart. Forgive without arithmetic. 70 times 7 is the master's way of forbidding you to keep a ledger. Resist not evil, not because you should lie down and let a truck roll over you, but because in God it has no law, no legitimacy, no statute under which to prosecute your peace. Agree quickly with your adversary not to submit to nonsense, but to refuse the invitation to invent a second power and wrestle with an echo. Do you hear the freedom in that? It is outwardly cool, yes, but inwardly overheated with love, because it refuses to certify a lie about God for even a minute. Now watch the stagecraft by which resentment survives. Two masks must be hung, offender and offended. They are paired. They require each other. Neither can keep its job without the other's cooperation. Offender says, I am the cause, and offended replies, I am the effect. And applause breaks out in the theater of separation. But when the one steps into the house, what happens to the script in one life? Where will you place the second pole required for resentment to spark? Where is the battery's other end? If the current of your being is God and God alone, what conductor will carry the shock? Try to hand it to the Christ within you, and it will slip through his fingers like a dream at dawn. Do you imagine the Christ lifted on a cross, rehearsing his charges? He speaks, and not with the arithmetic of payback. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is not a poetic flourish. That is metaphysics wearing flesh. He is declaring there is no second power to oppose the Father, no independent mind capable of sinning against the infinite except in a dream of separation. If you are one with that mind, what grievance can anchor in you except by your consent to be two? And if you withdraw that consent quietly, without fanfare, the hook finds no flesh. We can make this very practical and keep it just as holy. A man insults you words like thorns, tone like vinegar. Humanhood rises. Offender there, offended here, case open. But in the twinkling of awareness, you may check the scenery. One presence fills all space. Do you think that presence is injured? Do you think it has been reduced by syllables? Then where is the second power? If none, then what stands before you but a belief dressed as a man looking for an audience? Stand in the one and watch the costume fail. You may still answer. You may set a boundary. You may say, no, not that language in my house. But you will not bleed, and you will not bind him to your picture of him. The charge drops when the conductor is removed. Let me ask you until the question undoes you. In the one life, who is he to harm you? In the one mind, who is she to offend you? In the one law, what statue can the idol of injury hide under? If you cannot find a second pole, will you keep striking matches in an empty wind? Or will you let the theater close and step into the morning where there is only God being God as you, as me, as that neighbor who forgot our name? Be ye therefore perfect, not morally inflated, but whole, undivided, single-eyed. As this awareness takes on weight in you, not as a philosophy pinned to your lapel, but as breath and heartbeat, you will notice a strange economy. The emotional charge loses its conductor. Rage cannot complete its circuit. Bitterness cannot find its socket. The words may still float by. The old reflexes may twitch, but nothing lands. The offender dissolves into a brother, seen more clearly. The offended dissolves into the self that needed no apology to be free. And you will discover the secret that has been knocking at your door since Genesis. In God there never were two, and without two, resentment has nowhere to live. You will ask for receipts. I don't blame you. The accountants of spirituality sit with their pencils poised. Show us where this principle cashes a check. Very well. I will not hand you theories. I will walk you down a corridor that smelled of disinfectant and old rage. A man there called him Peter. Though his name was as ordinary as the jumpsuit had made a career of hating his warden, he had the speeches memorized. He could try his case before breakfast and win it by noon. I did not argue with him. I am useless in arguments. I forget my lines. I only asked him to walk that corridor the next day as if one life filled it from concrete to ceiling, as if the name I am claimed both uniforms and keys and the man behind the door. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and manufacture forgiveness. Be still and know. He made no promises. He simply walked, breathing that name, refusing two powers' entrance. A week later, he met me with a bewildered half-smile, the first his face had remembered in years. He was different, he said, as if confessing a misdemeanor. He stopped, asked about my mother by her name. He said, "We'll see about moving you." Now, do you think the warden caught religion overnight? Do you think we worked him like a puppet with silent strings? Or did one man lay down the role of offended in the only place roles are written within and thereby retire the role of offender? Agree with thine adversary quickly, said the master, not to let nonsense rule, but to end the quarrel where it breeds. When the inner quarrel ended, the outer quarrel lost its script. Presence no longer resisted organized appearance as kindness. One power had nothing to oppose. And so there was nothing left to play the tyrant. Another ledger entry, if you must. A woman lay in a room I never entered. The distance between our towns could be measured in miles. The distance between her breath and peace could be measured in inches. The diagnosis had a Latin name with many syllables. What did not need translation was her bitterness toward a sister who had failed her when help was asked. She spoke of it without heat. It had cooled into a glacier. We did not touch the body by mind. We will not use God to fix a machine. We entered the sanctuary and sat without petition, letting Father forgive them rise of its own authority until it was no longer a quote but a fact. The resentment did not fall to the floor with a clang. It thinned. It faded. It forgot its lines. And at the moment when she could no longer locate an injured me, the room changed without emotion. The nurse later used the words, turned a corner. I do not argue with her metaphor. I only know the body is a faithful echo. Release the accusation within, and flesh remembers its law. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds. Her heart was kept, and the physician with his good training signed his name to what peace had done. Now, lest you think this works only in dramatic corridors and sick rooms, let me take you to the more respectable theater where grievances wear suits. A man in an office, competent, faithful, given to silent prayer, found a colleague's rise, hooking him like a fish. He could recite why the other did not deserve it, and the recitation was so eloquent I was almost converted. Instead, I asked him to take a week and make one practice the marrow of his mourning. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, not in order to secure a promotion, but to starve the part of him that needed one to feel whole. Promotion or no promotion, let spring come to your climate. He returned lighter. The hook no longer found its jaw. He did his work as if God were the employer, because God was. 2 months later, his superior moved on and a new opening appeared. He stepped into it without triumph, without apology. But note this carefully. The miracle was not the title. The miracle was that the title had lost the power to confer identity. When identity is no longer mortgaged to outcomes, supply finds its lawful form. My meat is to do the will of him that sent me. He ate that meat. The rest arranged itself. This is the ethic of service we keep in this way. We do not solicit healings. We do not walk about with spiritual advertisements pinned to our lapels. When one is sincerely asked, we sit day and night if needed, not to wrestle with persons, not to hate a disease, not to rebuke a boss, but to abide where no second power can get a word in edgewise. Pray for them which despitefully use you, which is to say, release them from the part you were playing opposite them. I have kept such watch through the night with men and women who were sure their enemies held their fate. I have watched the dawn break, not with noise, but with the quiet rearrangement of facts. The letter arrives, the door opens, the pain eases, the face softens. We are not magicians. We are witnesses to one. Outwardly, it may look cold, no theatrics, no wrath. But inwardly, it is overheated with love because we refuse to certify a lie about anyone involved. Let the inner quarrel end and outer quarrels lose their script. The thread runs through prisons, sickbeds, offices, and kitchens, where resentment is let go in presence. Relationships remember their kinship. Bodies remember their ease, and supply remembers its source. This is not reward and punishment playing peekaboo. This is law, as quiet as gravity, as generous as sunlight. Be still and let the one tell its own story through your affairs. When you no longer lend your breath to the role of the offended, the whole theater relaxes and the play that remains is kinder than anything your injury could have written. I wish I could tell you that once you have felt the corridor grow soft or the sick room turn a corner, resentment packs its bags and leaves a forwarding address. It does not. It is crafty. It changes clothes. When it cannot sell itself as outrage, it arrives in a clerical collar. The early trap is almost comical if it were not so costly. The moment we taste even a thimbleful of truth, the personal self puffs up to advertise what it has swallowed. It learns the phrases, I and my Father are one, resist not evil, 70 times 7. And then with a solemn brow, defends its private grudges under the banner of principle. I have done it. I have walked out of a silence that would have healed a city only to correct a brother's tone in the name of God's order. That is not holiness. That is a holy fraud. Do you think it is the God self in us that polishes its vocabulary and then uses it as a cudgel? Do you think the Christ needs our indignation to guard his honor? The wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. If you must engrave a verse on the lintel of your prayer room, put that one there. The spiritual ego is a subtle bookkeeper. When the circumstance bends in our favor, it feels a sanctified elation. My treatment worked. My word carried weight. And when something crosses us, it sulks in dejection. Where is God when I need him? Elation and dejection are not opposites. They are a seesaw, nailed to the same little platform called me. Up and down it goes, squeaking piously, and all the while it calls its motion spirituality. Let me pull the mask off where it stings most. When you say, I am defending principle, check carefully. Whom are you protecting? Principle or your mask? Do you imagine omnipotence requires your temper as a bodyguard? Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? The master refused to defend himself. He refused even to defend God. He could not. In the one, there was nothing to defend against. Our angry defense of truth betrays our lingering faith in a second power. We are baptizing our grudges and calling them holy. In the start of this way, the lights are bright and the mirrors kind. We read, we pray, we witness little harmonies emerging as if at our word, and the prideful self puffs itself, even in his light. It walks a little taller, talks a little softer, and inwardly keeps a private ledger of who still owes an apology. This is why the mystics speak of a dark night that will not be argued away. The night is mercy. It is the season when the props fail, when the holy phrases return to mere syllables if we try to use them to protect the idol, when the room that once blazed with presence asks for a different sacrifice, I die daily. Not my body, not my career, not my comfort, my right to be right, my identity in being the one who knows. In that night, you will think you have lost God. In truth, you are losing the self that counterfeited his signature. And when that crack appears, and it will, sometimes by silence, sometimes by humiliation, sometimes by a very ordinary Tuesday, in which your brilliance cannot retrieve 1 ounce of peace, do not paste it over with verses, do not preach at it. Lay yourself on the altar without negotiation. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. The clean heart has no use for grudges, even lacquered ones. It does not need to win. It needs only to be what it is, God's transparency. Then the grievance looks for its altar and cannot find it. It falls to the floor like a censer in an empty temple. You will know you have passed a milestone not because angels sing when you enter a room, but because there is less in you to ignite. Remarks that would have lit you like tinder drift by like thistledown. You set a boundary without a sermon. You say no because love is not confused, and you do not tremble afterward, needing to rehearse why you were justified. The mark of passage is a great quiet that neither flatters nor condemns. Not I, but Christ liveth in me. When the I that resented has diminished, to what can resentment attach? If the hook finds no jaw, the fisherman goes home. I speak firmly here because I have watched the holy fraud keep good people in chains. It will sing hymns in the morning and tally slights at night. It will quote judge not and judge anyone who fails to quote it properly. It will nurse a family injury for 20 years and call it intercession. Let's twist that Bible upside down until it spills its living meaning. Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. Not later. Not when they apologize. Not once. You have educated them with your superior metaphysics. Now, because to do so is to refuse a second power and to let the false self die another inch. Do not be discouraged if you still find pockets of pious resentment in you this evening. Be glad to have seen them. Sight is already dissolution. Take them where they cannot breathe. Sit in the one without a case to argue. Whisper, if you must, Father, forgive them, for I have not known what I do when I defend thee with anger. Then be still. In that stillness, the masquerade ends, the seesaw stops, and a different life rises. Not swollen, not shrunken, simply whole. The less self remains, the less material there is for resentment's spark, and the more effortless it becomes to live the sentence that sounds impossible to humanhood, but is natural to God. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Let us speak plainly of love, because the word has been worn to threads by our sighing. Emotional pity is not love. It is a sweetened chain. It feels tender for a moment, then hardens into fatigue and unspoken accusation. After all I have done for you. I know that flavor. I have brewed that tea. It makes heroes out of sufferers and orphans out of those they serve. Impersonal love, by contrast, does not make a performance of feeling. It beholds the Christ where the world insists on a case, and because it beholds rightly, it acts rightly without depletion. Having eyes, see ye not? The Master did not say, having nerves, tingle ye much. He said, see. To see the Christ is love. To fixate on the bruise and join it with our own is pity. Do you think it is the God self in us that grows exhausted because we listen to the same sad recital for the 7th year? Do you think the Christ of us needs to wrinkle its brow to prove it cares? Or is that our humanhood, hungry to feel necessary, secretly pleased to be indispensable, billing hours to a quiet ledger in the heart? Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, and it does not arrange its furniture around the other's weakness to ensure the lease continues. Impersonal love is not cold, it is clean. It is the river that waters your garden and then goes on without setting up a tent to be thanked. Let me name the practice that changes the weather in a room. Insulation. No emotional interchange. Not indifference, God forbid, but a refusal to swap atmospheres, to inhale another's fear and exhale our panic as if it were help. In the monastic life lived in the world, the heart burns for God and man, but the windows are tight against drafts. You enter the hospital room, the office, the kitchen, and you do not become the room. You bring the kingdom. The kingdom of God is within you. If it is within you, take it with you. Do not check it at the door in exchange for sympathy's costume. Hold no man in condemnation, not the one who failed, not the one who fumes, and watch what happens to your stamina. Condemnation is the slow leak that makes servants cranky by sundown. Love plugs it, and suddenly you can give without being used because you are no longer trading in the same currency as grieving. Pray for them which despitefully use you. Hear that from the inside out. As long as you are praying at them, you are still in the interchange. Pray for them, which is to say, release them from your picture of them, and you stop being used because what was using you was not their malice. It was your need to be right about them. I have sat across from souls who wanted me to pity them properly. There is a choreography to it, and you must hit your marks. When I missed a cue, they called me cold. And yes, outwardly cold-blooded is exactly how love appears to those who mistake heat for help. But inwardly, the heart was overheated with love for God and man, so much so that I would not lie to them with my face. I would not sign the contract that kept their injury on retainer. I would not rehearse the villain's lines so they could remain the hero. We prayed until the roles dissolved and the person stood where the problem had been. Do not misunderstand me. Compassion moves. The Master, seeing the multitudes, was moved. But he did not join their despair and fan it. He fed them. He touched the leper. Yes, but he did not become leprosy's publicist. He spoke, and the man stood. This is love. Clear seeing that becomes clean doing. It may say no without a tremor. It may take the child from the toxic home and not waste an evening hating the one who made it toxic. It may fire the employee and not compose an obituary for their future. Love acts because love sees the Christ even while it acts. Pity dithers because pity needs a villain to feel alive. Notice the fruit where pity had once planted burrs. Pity secretly expects repayment. When none comes, it grows tart. It breeds hidden resentments, the little side glances and the careful silences that make houses heavy. Impersonal love leaves nothing sticky in the room. Dust cannot cling to polished glass. You help, you bless, you correct, you feed, you sign the check, you say, this is the line. And afterward there is no residue, no inner muttering about appreciation or ingratitude. You sleep, my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. That is not poetry. That is the physics of love without interchange. So take this as your simple way today. Before you answer the phone, that always arrives loaded, Before you walk into the office where someone scripts you as rescuer or foil, before you sit with the one who longs for your pity more than for their freedom, be still. A single breath will do, if it is honest. Father, show forth thyself. Let me behold thy Christ here. Then hold no man in condemnation. Refuse the second power its stage. See, and then act from that seeing. Do this, and you will discover an astonishment. You are able to help more and resent less, to say little and accomplish much, to love without being hooked, because love has become your insulation. And in that insulation, grievance cannot find a wire to travel. Now to the places where resentment finds its favorite handles, body and money. I can feel some of you reach for your coats. You would like to include me out of this part. But if we will be free, we must put our fingers where the bruise still keeps score. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment? The master asks, as if to say, will you finally stop renting your identity to the costume? It's a tomb if you're living inside of it. It's only a body if you stand outside and use it as an instrument. Do you think it is the God self in us that panics at a wrinkle, curses a scar, worships a mirror? Or is that our human nude, terrified that the suit will be mistaken for the wearer and therefore flies into resentment whenever the suit is snagged? When you live inside the body, every slight against it is blasphemy. Every illness is an insult you must avenge. Every aging is a thief to prosecute. When you live outside the body, as in the one who formed it and wears it like a good work coat, you take care of it as a mechanic oils a tool, carefully, gratefully, but without kneeling before it. A doctor can correct it without your pride having to sign consent forms. A stranger can mock it, and you need not compose a counter-sermon. You may set a firm boundary. Love is not confused, but you will not let a mouth define a temple. Take no thought for your life is not negligence. It is a fierce refusal to crawl into the tomb and call that safety. And money, let us twist the Bible upside down here until the red letters spill their practical juice. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God, in his cheer, hands us some marbles, dollar bills to play with. He does not mind that you have a pocketful. He smiles when you build something good with them. He is not amused when you crawl into the marble bag, tie the string from the inside, and call that security, and then keep a gun trained on anyone who looks like a borrower. Do you think it is the Christ in us that resents a neighbor's success, that burns when an invoice tarries, that keeps a mental ledger of who owes us a thank you? Or is that the separate self guarding its hoard, frightened that the river will dry up if a man upstream takes a cup? Let me give you a ledger entry that changed its columns. A woman, call her Ruth, came to me with a face like winter. Her business partner, with whom she had prayed and planned, had moved funds in a way that any accountant could testify looked like betrayal. The emails were printed and highlighted. She wore offended as an honest badge. We did not use God to fetch the money back. We refused two powers in the very place money pretends to be power. For a week she sat morning and night with one uncompromising practice. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, not to make the numbers behave, but to relocate identity in the only wealth that is the life that sources every channel and is bound to none. We read aloud, with a voice trembling first and then steadying. No man can serve two masters. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. She chose. Every time outrage rose, she answered not with bargaining, but with being still until the name I am grew louder than the name on the bank account. Do you think the partner became a saint overnight? He did not. An attorney still drafted letters. A meeting still occurred. But Ruth entered that room outside the marble bag. She asked for what was just without hatred, accepted what was offered without groveling. And here is the miracle we always try to push to the back of the ledger. She stopped needing that purse to prove supply. Within weeks, 2 new contracts appeared through doors she had not knocked on. The reparation came in part, the rest came by another route entirely, which was supply. All of it or none of it, depending on where you were standing. My cup runneth over is not a bank statement. It is the climate of a heart that has moved its address from persons and percentages into presence. Resentment had no hook left because her wealth was no longer the other man's good behavior. The same law works in your flesh. A remark about your body loses its sting when you are not renting your name to skin. An illness loses its claim to insult when you care for the instrument without crawling into the tomb. You consent to surgery if wisdom leads there. You consent to rest if love whispers that word. You consent to nothing that requires hating your own body to prove your spirituality. You behold the temple from the doorway of the one who fills it. And because you stand there, the janitor's work is light. Consider the lilies is not a flower show. It is an order of trust. Stop living in raiment. So take the practicum with you, not as a theory, but as a way of walking down the street. Each morning, step outside the body before you dress it. Father, this is thy instrument. Play what thou wilt. Each transaction, step outside the bag before you count it. Father, thou art the flow. Let me be transparent. And then notice offenses against flesh and funds lose their authority to define you. They may knock, but they cannot evict. You will still mend what breaks and balance what blurs, but without the tremor of a tenant afraid of the landlord. Detach identity from body and wealth, and resentment loses its favorite handles. Where, then, will you take offense? In the one, there is no second pole for grievance to spark. Render unto Caesar what has faces on it. Render unto God yourself. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Put it where no thief can enter and no rust can argue. Put it where the marbles are only marbles, the body only a faithful tool, and you free. Now, you will ask, how do I keep this free? You know how it is. Today the marbles are only marbles and the body only a tool, and tomorrow a headline or a look across the table recruits you back into the old army. There must be a way of walking that refuses conscription. There is, and it is humble enough to be overlooked. Die daily, not with theatrical moans, not with vows that wilt by Thursday, but with small, faithful, almost impolite refusals to certify a second power. Begin where you can reach. Your pocket, your purse, your tongue. Carry the red letters in a size small enough to be impertinent, always there, always interrupting. Or if your eyes protest, carry them in your own phrasing. Twist the Bible upside down until the blood flows into your language. Forgive 70 times 7 becomes, I will not make a hobby of their fault. Resist not evil becomes, I decline to build a second throne just so I can fight it. Judge not becomes, I will not write a character sketch of God's child. Put 2 or 3 such lines where your fingers can find them the way they find keys. Let them be living keys. Then the morning, before you dress the body or count the marbles, sit still enough to hear your own defiance lose its accent. 1 breath is plenty if it is honest. 3 minutes will do if you give them as an offering. Ask 1 question and do not answer it. If God is one, who exactly am I resenting? Do not make a list. Do not argue your case. Let the question be a small white flag. Be still and know that I am God. If you will give even 90 seconds to this stillness, you will feel the place in you that is always a plaintiff begin to shrug and go home for breakfast. Let it rest in the answerless presence. Die a thimbleful. That thimble counts. Now, deny 2 powers without trumpets, quietly, as a gardener pulls a weed. Father, thou art one. Therefore, this picture is misread if it has an enemy in it. Say it once with meaning and then hold your peace. The images will come offense. The great inner courtroom with its gleaming railings, let them pass like clouds too lazy to rain. Do not grab the corner of a cloud to make a coat. You are not improving anyone by arguing with their costume in your head. Agree with thine adversary quickly. Lives here. Agree that the adversary, as adversary, does not exist in God. Then stop rehearsing his lines. All through the day, run your micro drills. When the email snaps at you, pause the width of 1 syllable and bless in silence. It takes no time at all to say within, Christ is here. And it takes all the sting out of being clever. When the text arrives from the historian of your former life, the one who keeps a scroll of your past errors tied with a fresh ribbon, refuse the second thought. The first thought that rises from God is always simple and uncluttered. Peace, or silence, or no, or yes. The second thought is the polisher of grievance. It says yes, but let us explain, justify, jab back lightly. Deny at the stage. Unplug the microphone. If your tongue has already leapt, withdraw its tail gently. I spoke too soon. Forgive me. That is a beautiful death, the death of the right to be right. It leaves the room breathable. Before you step into rooms thick with role assignments, the office, the kitchen at 6 p.m., the committee that never met a grudge, it did not laminate, set your insulation. 1 breath. Father, show forth thyself. Let me hold no man in condemnation. Then enter. Hold your face as a window and not a billboard. Say little, see much. Act cleanly. Remember, pity trades in the same currency as grievance and always wants change back. Love spends and forgets its own hand. If a boundary is to be set it without sermonizing the offender into a villain just so you can feel heroic. That, too, is a death, the death of theater. Let the evening be simple. No litanies of failure, no moral bookkeeping that turns peace into a homework assignment. 1 line will do, written where you cannot avoid it. Today, I held no man in condemnation. If you cannot write it truthfully, do not write a paragraph of excuses. Die to it now. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Offer the picture of the face you condemned into the light without adjectives. Forgive 70 times 7 if needed. Forgive yourself 7 times in the next 7 breaths for remembering the incident with a spicy improvement. Then close the book and sleep as one who is kept. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. Do you think it is the God self in us that demands grand gestures in order to feel spiritual? Or is that our humanhood, hungry for drama because it is terrified of daily quietness? The kingdom comes like yeast and dough, not like symbols at a parade. These refusals are small, too small to impress your admirers, but they starve resentment at the root. Because resentment thrives on our belief in a second power and withers when that belief is denied its morning coffee, its afternoon snack, its bedtime story. Die daily in these ways, and you will find, almost rudely, that grievances arrive to collect rent and discover you moved out. The house stands. the furniture is lighter, and the tenant is God. Now we must speak to the nervous place in you that worries forgiveness will turn into a doormat and non-resistance into a shrug. It will not. Unless you think passivity and peace are cousins, they are not. Peace is an authority. Passivity is a vacancy. In the one, resentment has no license, but justice is not evicted. Let your communication be. Yea, yea, nay, nay, is not a suggestion to mumble. It is a directive to speak from the center without poison. You can be immovably firm and utterly free of hatred that in fact is the only firmness that doesn't wobble tomorrow. Let me ask it as plainly as I can. Does God need your hatred to uphold justice or your clarity to reveal it? Did the Master require malice to protect holiness, or did he simply stand straight and say, put up thy sword? He refused to play the world's game of two powers even while he moved through a world that loved its games. He could turn and face a crowd hot with stones. And with one sentence, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone, disarm the scene without inheriting their fury. Do you imagine that a red-faced lecture would have done more? Non-resistance is not passive. It is the refusal to fight shadows with shadows. It turns on the light and lets the play end. So what does this look like at your kitchen table, in your office, at the city desk? It looks like filing the report without venom. It looks like leaving the room when a line is crossed and locking the door without scrawling graffiti on the soul of the one who crossed it. It looks like changing the contract clause with a clean pen and no inner speech that rehearses their motives. It looks like calling the police when safety is at stake and then keeping your heart from becoming a courtroom with a permanent jury. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Wisdom acts. Harmlessness refuses. Hatred the use of its tongue. Here is a boundary script that belongs to the kingdom. No, not a theatrical. No, not a no conditioned on how much applause you will receive. Not a no that needs to win. A no said from presence. No, that will not happen here. No, thank you. This conversation is over. No. We will not release funds without accountability. A soft-spoken no from one power carries more authority than a loud no from rage, because rage tries to borrow authority from noise. Presence speaks with its own weight. My peace I give unto you, peace, not a pout dressed up as principle. If your no comes from that peace, the room knows it. It may complain, but it knows. Let me give you a trio. A mother says to her son, I love you, and you may not use this house to feed your habit. The door closes at 10. She prays at 11 without resentment. Love stands, and the boundary holds. An employer says to a good worker, you are gifted, and gossip ends today. And then, instead of narrating a villain, offers a written standard and keeps it no after meetings to save a scorn. A magistrate hands down a sentence with a steady voice. For the safety of the community and your own, you will serve this term. And afterward, he doesn't go home and eat his heart. He prays, Father, keep him. Awaken him. Outwardly cold-blooded, to those who mistake heat for help, perhaps inwardly overheated with love for God and man. Absolutely. The fear that justice without hatred is weak is the oldest flattery the separate self ever told itself. It needs indignation to feel tall, but indignation does not make actions clean. It only makes them sticky. The measure is simple, and it will save you years of spiritual bookkeeping. When your action leaves no aftertaste of bitterness, you acted from one power. If there is a residue, rinse it. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. That is not a permit for cruelty. It is a notice that payback is not your department. You are not hired as Providence's bailiff. Be ye angry and sin not. If anger must pass through, let it flash like summer lightning without burning the field. Do what is lawful and needed, and then let love have the last word within. Would you like a drill that sets bones straight before you confront, before you write, before you post? Step into the inner court and ask, if God is one, what am I defending? If the answer is your mask, wait. If the answer is clarity for all concerned, proceed without condemnation. Say your yea or your nay as one who stands outside the tomb and outside the marble bag. Then walk away from the scene without picking it up in your mind and trimming it to fit your favorite grievance. Agree with thine adversary quickly. Within agree that as adversary he does not exist in God, and then stand with the man as brother, even while you bar the door against his behavior. This is not softness. It is steel with a pulse. It is the courage to act and the deeper courage to be undefiled by your own action. It is justice without hatred, boundaries without bile, truth without theatrics. And it will feel, for a while, very undramatic. Good. Drama is what kept us hooked. Strength is quiet. You will know it by the room it leaves in you after the deed is done. Space, not scorch. Peace, not the hangover of triumph. There, in that cool, bright air, you will recognize the one who did the work, and the self that would have resented has nothing left to do but bow. Now comes the simplest word, and it will sound like a joke to the part of you that prefers heroic suffering. Joy. Not the fizzy kind that waits on a raise or a compliment, but the spring that bubbles because it is God being himself as you. I told you earlier I shouldn't have been invited. You should have included me out, but if you insist on keeping me, then I must insist on this. A life without grudges bubbles. It cannot help it. Rejoice evermore, said the apostle. Do you think he meant rejoice when you win, or did he mean rejoice because the kingdom of God is within you and the king does not change with weather? I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. If abundance is a person and not a pile, then abundance is your climate when you stand in one and refuse employment to grievance. The laughter is not giddy. It is clean. The face may look cool, outwardly cold-blooded, you remember, but inwardly overheated, with love for God and man until it feels almost impolite not to let a hymn escape. Let us make this plain enough to become a rule of life. No condemned list. Burn it. Judge not, that ye be not judged, is not a threat. It is a release form. No debtor's ledger. Tear it. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven, not by a distant bookkeeper, but by your own heart unclenching. Die daily. Tiny deaths count. Refuse a second power its seat at your table, at breakfast, at noon, at night. Love impersonally. Hold no man in condemnation. And do not trade atmospheres. Use the body lightly. Stand outside it and keep it oiled like a good tool, not worshipped like a tomb. Use money lightly. Play with your marbles. Do not climb into the bag. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Put your treasure where rust cannot argue and thieves cannot flatter you into watchfulness. Put it in presence. If you will keep this simple rule, you will find that resentment cannot find oxygen. It gasps and forgets what it wanted to say. Now, take a 7-day experiment and let us see if these are just pretty sentences or bread that feeds for 7 days. At every hook, when the email pricks you, when the face you dread appears, when the mirror or the ledger winks, ask one question before you move a muscle. If God is one, who exactly am I resenting right now? Do not answer fast. Let the question turn off the lights in the theater. If a boundary is needed, set it. If a word is needed, speak it. But do so after the inner quarrel ends. Morning. 1 minute of stillness with one line. Be still and know that I am God. And one practical vow. I will hold no man in condemnation today. Midday. One breath that says within, Christ is here before you reply. Evening. One line written or whispered. With joy shall ye draw water out of the wells of salvation. And then draw a sip by blessing the person you are most tempted to edit. Watch chains fall. Conversations change their script. The room you live in becomes roomy. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Taste first. The seeing will follow. Carry this into our life together. For a freedom that is only private is not freedom at all. It is a hobby. Serve when asked, truly asked, and then serve wholly, day or night, until harmony is restored. But do not solicit need in order to feel necessary. Stay silent when not asked. There is no prize for spiritual interrupting. Keep your inner weather warm and clear, and your outer hands steady and clean. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. When you say yes, let it be from presence, not pressure. When you say no, let it be from peace, not pique. Pray for those who despitefully use you, not at them, but for them, and then let love decide the verbs. This is the monastic life lived on Main Street. Insulated, available, universal. No emotional interchange. Infinite tenderness. Outwardly, you may be called cold by those who have mistaken heat for help. Inwardly, the heart will be singing psalms to a rhythm that never tires. Now seal this in you, or throw the whole talk away. There are no justified resentments because there are no two powers. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. In that one, who is offended and who offends. In him we live and move and have our being. If being is God, where shall resentment sit? It sits only in a dream of to me against you, right against wrong as rival thrones. Wake, and the chairs are gone. Perfect love casteth out fear, and with fear goes the little altar where grudges are fed. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Stand there and watch not only your hands be free to act, but your heart be free of aftertastes. Freedom flowers when only God is your identity. Then resentment has nothing to breathe. So I leave you with this joy, not as a decoration, but as a condition. Do not be drunk with wine, be not drunk with outrage either, but be filled with the Spirit. Let the bubbles rise for reasons no human bookkeeper can tally. Let them rise in sick rooms and boardrooms, kitchens and courtrooms, because the well is not in the room. It is in you, and it is God. Say within, as often as breath happens, thou art the one, and then live as if it were recklessly true. I promise you this miracle that looks like nothing at first. Faces will soften your own, most of all. Work will simplify, sleep will steady, and the ancient hobby of grievance will seem too heavy to lift. Then the world will still be the world, and you will still do what must be done firmly, cleanly, without bile, and under everything, a champagne joy will call your name, and you will answer, present. He whom the sun sets free is free indeed. Go in that freedom and let it overflow.